Hello and welcome to the Nutritank podcast, where we interview leading experts within the field of food systems, nutrition, and lifestyle medicine. Our aim is to empower you, the next generation of healthcare professionals and change makers. We believe that the valuable knowledge and experience of our guests will inspire you to act and join the movement in creating a healthier population.
Hello everyone, my name is Luke Zollman Thomas and welcome to the first episode of this series of the Nutritank podcast. I am so excited for the series ahead, and in this episode I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Ali Jaffee and Dr. Iain Broadley. Now, Ali is a multi-award winning NHS junior doctor in psychiatry. She's a mental health speaker, an advocate, a transformational coach, a social media content creator with more than 25,000 followers, and a youth mental health charity trustee. Dr. Ali is pursuing a career in psychiatry, something she's dreamt of since her schoolgirl days, and she has a special interest in young people's mental health, being the co-host of an NHS-sponsored youth mental health podcast. Ali recently won the 2024 Cura H Mental Health Advocate of the Year award. Iain is also a multi-award-winning NHS-trained junior doctor. He holds a Bachelor's of Medicine and Surgery and a BSc in Biomedical Science. He's gained a place on the NHS Clinical Entrepreneurship Programme and is currently gaining experience in an Australian healthcare system as a junior doctor at Monash Health, Melbourne. He is guided by his life values of compassion, connection, excellence, adventure, and family. Now here's where Ali and Iain's paths cross. In 2017, whilst medical students at Bristol University, they co-founded Nutritank, a not-for-profit which educates healthcare professionals and students on nutrition and lifestyle medicine in order to prevent, manage, and even reverse chronic disease, both in their patients and themselves. Nutritank has been hugely successful, most recently achieving national acclaim and recognition in the official NHS 75th anniversary book, and winning the BBC Food and Farming New Talent Award, the Diana Award, and the Prime Minister's Points of Light Award. Ali, Iain, and Nutritank have contributed to key policy change work, such as getting a nutrition education clause added to the 2019 NHS long-term plan, and the creation of a gold standard nutrition education curricula for medical students led by the Association for Nutrition. Now, I'm so excited for the episode ahead. Enjoy. Okay, welcome everybody. So our first guests on the podcast need little introduction, being the founders of Nutritank, and I'm so grateful to be here interviewing you both, hoping to dig a little bit deeper and understand more about the spirit of the organisation you both have co-created. We'll explore how far it's come since its creation 5 years ago and where it's going. So welcome Iain.
Thank you.
And welcome, Ali.
So good to be on here. So nice. Thank you.
So first, I'd love to just rewind the clock and hear about your pre-med school lives. So tell us a little bit about where you both grew up and what your journey into medicine looked like.
Ali, do you want to go first?
Sure, ladies first. Let's do it. It's nice to know there's a bit of respect there.
I do try.
So I chivalrous. So I didn't get into medical school first time round, and I think that was a huge milestone actually for me in my personal development journey. I had a lot of school teachers around me say, don't try again, stick to your strengths, which for me at school was languages. And they said, do you know what? You've given it a good go, just go for that. And I always wanted to be a doctor from a very young age, and I wasn't going to give up just from all the skeptics out there and all that jazz. So I took a gap year. I was the only one out of my group of friends who did so, which at the time felt like the end of the world, but wow, grown up a lot since then. And so I took a gap year. I actually did a lot more work experience, which is always hard to get your hands on unless you've got a very cool doctor mom like you, Luke. So I managed to do some more work experience and just actually grew up quite a lot in that gap year, and then got 3 interviews. And by the time I got to medical school interviews, I actually was a different person. And so that was delightful. I got into the majority of med schools I tried for. I worked, and then I went traveling to Australia, which is obviously where my wonderful co-founder is residing now. I totally fell in love with that country and its holistic approach to health and well-being, and just how outdoor living it really is compared to the cold UK and sandwich culture and sedentary lifestyle culture. So that was a huge kind of springboard to me into this holistic healthcare community. I then have a lot of family in the States, so I went on to America after my time in Australia, and I was so intrigued by proactive medicine and holistic healthcare even before obviously starting medical school. And in America, I actually spent some time shadowing some doctors and going to a few clinics out there, and was just really inspired alongside reading all this brilliant research in the nutrition and lifestyle space. So my soul, my mind, my body was already just very powered up and aligned with, you know, what went on to be called lifestyle medicine. At the time, for me, it was mainly integrative medicine, as that was what was most popular in America, and that was the main language being used. And then I started med school at Bristol, which was always the one I wanted to choose. So I was very grateful to have got in there because I fell in love with the city when I saw it, and couldn't be more grateful. And I'm sure we'll go on to talk about it, that it was Bristol that I studied at, because it really was and is a hotbed for this holistic healthcare, integrative medicine, lifestyle medicine, whatever label you want to call it, movement, particularly because of the healthy city kind of initiatives itself, but also the med school faculty who were incredibly inspiring. So yeah, started Bristol and was already primed to be looking for this kind of knowledge and inspiration around health in your hands, what patients can do for themselves. I was bitterly disappointed, to be honest with you, when I was sat in my lectures. Just found it very biomedically inclined, and kind of missing out on that spirit and that idea that people can be empowered to make health and lifestyle modifications to prevent and manage their chronic diseases. And so got involved with the College of Medicine as their national student nutrition lead, and was really taken under the wings of Dr. Michael Dixon, who to me today, you know, maybe 8 years on now, is still one of my greatest inspirations. And he really helped open the door for me with lots of opportunities in this nutrition, lifestyle, integrative medicine space that I wasn't getting in my medical school experience. I volunteered at the conferences and got to meet really incredible clinicians who were practicing in this way that I so wanted to practice. And then I thought to myself, wow, I'd really like to do something here in Bristol. I'd like to light up a movement here. And then in my second year, I started a nutrition and medicine interest group and advertised it around. And to my absolute delight, Mr. Iain Broadley walked in as a graduate medical student, and we started chatting. We met up for coffee after this evening event, and boom, the idea and the seed was sown to create something in the form of a movement that probably has changed so much in such a short, not probably, it has changed so much in such a short space of time, and really gave us purpose in our lives as well, and helped mold us into the clinicians that we want to be. So that is the story of how we met, really.
Fantastic. And I mean, I'm sure we'll go on to explore the kind of creation and the growth and the kind of, evolution of what has happened to Nutritank. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for sharing. Amazing. So many things to pick up on there. But also, Iain, I'd love to hear about, what was pre-med school life like for you? And what was your journey into medicine like?
Yeah, thank you. I always love hearing Ali's backstory, and actually the commonalities between her sort of upbringing and what influenced her before coming to medical school, because it's very similar to mine. So, I discovered I wanted to get into medicine when I was about 15 or 16 years old, for all the, I think, right reasons. Didn't fully understand what it was that was bringing me into medicine or wanting me to apply to medicine. I knew I loved the science. I liked the practical application. I really like working with people. It just ticks all the right boxes. But sadly, I applied my
my college year. Didn't get in first time round. Applied in a year out. Again, didn't get in. So that was two rounds there I didn't get in. And in my year out, I worked for a year in a elderly people's home, residential home, and a couple of other jobs, and then went traveling. And I got one successful application, which was biomedical science at Sussex University. And I took it because that was interesting. It was science. It was some practical application within labs. So I went for that. I knew it wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing, but it's a story I'm sure lots of medical students have also had that opportunity, and I took it as I could. I think Sussex was really important for me because it allowed me to take a step back and think about what it was I wanted to be doing with my life, and also to explore other options other than medicine. And so for 2 or 3 years, I was doing lots of the fun activities that I like to do in my sort of free time. So I was a big part of the Surf Society, the Ski and Snow Sports Society. I loved to do, lots of different activities there. And I also, I worked quite hard in my second and third year, so much so that I kind of was doing okay. And I thought, actually, I've had a look at so many other options, and nothing's really actually drawing me like medicine did. So at the end of that year, at the end of Sussex, I decided I'm going to apply again for a third time. So actually that then actually put a lot of pressure on me to really succeed, because I knew the stakes were high. You need to be getting the top marks. You need to be, all these things, you have to be ticking the boxes. So I think I put a lot of pressure on me. I was also doing a lot of these different activities and running societies and everything you think is super, super important as a third year graduate. Sadly, that led me to become quite stressed, and it actually led me to feel like there was a lot going on that was out of my control. And I actually had, I would say, I had a bit of a breakdown from a stress point of view. And I went back to the basics. I think I went and saw the counsellor at the university, and I took a step back. Needed like a week or two off. And actually that was really, really important for me, because it then allowed me to think, okay, I need to make some big changes in my life. I basically cut out alcohol. I stopped a lot of things with my nutrition and had a look at my nutrition, changed my sleep patterns, and it really, really helped, like almost so well. And it then allowed me to get on with my exams. I did really well in my exams. And then the next year I had another go at applying for medicine. And I got one successful place, and that was at Bristol. So 11 rejections over many years, but one successful place, and that got me into Bristol as a graduate entry. The reasoning behind why the nutrition helped so well was because I had some really great background knowledge that had been given to me, or that I had learned since quite a young age as a teenager. So some of my story is that I have Dutch heritage from my mum's side, and I have Dutch family who live in Portugal, and they live on this amazing farm in the north of the country. So they emigrated there, and they are really, they've made a really big effort in growing a lot of their own vegetables, growing food from scratch and making food from scratch, the importance of eating food as a family together, and actually putting food at the center of a lot of their life, as well as yoga. Yoga is huge now, but getting that kind of influence as a 13, 14-year-old and actually starting yoga at 15, 16, that's like 15 years ago. yoga is huge now, but like actually having that then as an influence. So I started yoga again at the age of whenever I was 22. And that really helped as well. So I had a dip where I wasn't looking after myself. Then I regained all of this sort of self-care knowledge that I had taken from my family members, and I utilized that to help me. So when I came to Bristol, I was already primed, as Ali was, in thinking, this is so important. We need to be, this is so important, basically. And then it got me thinking, okay, I, for some reason, found a lot of, when I first got to Bristol, I found out about lifestyle medicine through the internet somehow. It wasn't through any of the lectures. I hadn't met other doctors who were practicing like this yet. And it was a lot of the doctors in the US where I saw how important it was and how the research work that they were publishing. And I thought, this is like, we should be doing this. This is so important. We need to be focusing on this. Like, I can't wait to learn about this. Anyway, as Ali has already described, none of this was happening at Bristol in the lectures. And then I saw this nutrition society pop up that Ali and her friends were organizing. And I was like, well, there you go. That's where I need to be going and learning from, and connecting with the people there. So I came to one of the first sessions, and here we are.
Wow. It's amazing. And I think there's, like you said, Iain, there's so many parallels to both of your stories. It's kind of like, we need to thank our lucky socks that you guys were there at the same time, that the stars aligned, really. And I mean, I think one of the biggest parallels or that I noticed was, so first of all, neither of you got in first time. Definitely could have deterred you, or could have made you think, oh, well, is this the right decision for me? Ali, you even had some external input, which came in saying, look, you're not going to get in again. And then you both took years out, and it seemed like those were quite formative, and they really kind of lit that fire in your belly and gave you that deeper understanding of the type of medicine, the type of healthcare that you wanted to strive for. I mean, would you be able to compare yourself? Because I think that's an unorthodox route into med school. Most students, if they kind of get their 3As or more, they pop into med school straight away. I mean, how do you think that experience is different? And do you think they have the same platform to fully understand, perhaps challenge the status quo in the way that you guys have?
I genuinely think if I hadn't of taken a gap year and had that time by myself, away from the homogenized group that I was in at school, all my best friends still, but you become part of a tribe, whether it's a group at school or at university, as I observed in friends and how they socialize. You don't have individual identity because you've been part of a pack culture, and we're all going to go to university, we're all going to do this. And I noticed that at Bristol, actually, and it was something I really struggled with. And I had a number of mental health issues whilst at medical school, but prior to anything getting clinical, I remember just really struggling with the idea that everyone wanted to do everything together. It's like, let's all go to the shops, let's all go to the gym, let's all. And I just wanted to be me and do me, because I knew what my preferences were. I knew myself really well from my gap year, and I had a great understanding of myself and some self-awareness. Obviously not enough, because I definitely could have benefited from a great understanding of myself before falling into depression, but hindsight's a beautiful thing. And I remember thinking to myself, I just felt such an honor and privilege to have gotten a place at medical school. I started with, don't mess this up, Ali. No one thought you could do it. You were surrounded by besides my parents, you were surrounded by non-cheerleaders. So don't mess this up. Don't fail your first year. Just work hard. Yes, uni is about having fun and making friends. But I actually went into medical school really grateful to have a solid group of friends already. And I just went in there with this is your future, rather than, oh my God, let's get wasted. It's university. It's time to be free. I had done that on my gap year, to be honest with you. I'd had a lot of coming of age experiences that I just wanted to put my head down. When I got to Bristol, it was a huge privilege, and I wanted to make the most of a 6-year degree that isn't cheap, and that is full of inspiring people that if you don't seize the opportunities, they'll just completely fly by. So I think definitely this experience gave me this kind of change making, do you spirit, and brought about a lot of individualism in me. And I don't know, maybe Ian has a similar experience.
I think having done a degree before, that definitely helped in sort of understanding, okay, sort of, I'm 3 years maybe ahead of a lot of the undergraduates I'm going into the year with. I kind of know what I like and don't like. I don't really have the same need to, I guess, party as much, which is fine as you are at that level, at that age. But I think I think my experience growing up, having quite a lot of time to adventure and having had family who were not British, maybe, living in Portugal and getting experience from them and seeing maybe a different side of health and how it can be, it's so important for holistic health is so important. I think that having that understanding really, really helped me. And it gave me a completely different thinking outside the box before coming to Bristol. I completely agree with that.
I just wanted to, because Ian's very family oriented, as am I, but I feel like I haven't given them a big enough shout out. So I'm also not British. Both my parents are from Johannesburg, South Africa. I was born here, but I've got dual nationality, and I visit Cape Town, where all my family have moved to now frequently. And my mom, I grew up with my mom, who is the most brilliant cook and has taught me everything I know. And she's vegetarian. When I was a teenager, she went pescatarian. So a lot of what we ate was whole food cooking and lots of vegetables. I was a very fussy eater, but nonetheless, she tried her hardest. And my mom's also been a Pilates teacher for 25 plus years. And so she's my health inspiration. She always was talking about strength training and moving your body and eating lots of vegetables, nuts and seeds. That's practically what she eats. And she even taught Pilates at my school at one point. She brought it in, which was kind of embarrassing at the time, but do rate her for doing that, challenging what the PE options were. It was really cool. And so just wanted to shout out to my family too for influencing me in that way.
That was a really cool story. Your mum coming in doing the Pilates. I was just do a quick shout out to my mum as well. So she's my mum's an educational psychologist, children's educational psychologist, but recently has evolved and done a course on nature therapy. And so for the last couple of years has been practicing nature therapy and brought that into her children's psychology as well. So I guess really big influence for me has been my parents and the importance they've put on getting into green space and spending time outside, doing some form of activity, and just the basics of just walking. And that's a huge influence. Just going for a walk in the park or going for a walk in some beautiful places in the UK, which are really easy to access. That was a huge influence. So big shout out as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's amazing that you guys are able to attribute some of the kind of early motivation to the wonderful people in your families and the impact that can have. So that's kind of, we could get it through that environment and that exposure. Like, it was also a platform for you guys to hear about nuts, Pilates, nature walks, which is certainly not, those don't get prescribed really. So going into medicine, it was good to have an understanding that that is a big determinant of well-being as well, and that's not going to come through a pill. And then it was also that coming of age experience that gave you that platform, that when you arrived at university, it wasn't going to be this, I need to both work myself out socially and achieve all of these other goals. That wasn't as much of a priority, basically. So it's amazing to kind of unpick a little bit about why, when you did create Nutritank so early on, that you were kind of both in a position to do that.
Are you a healthcare professional looking to elevate your knowledge of nutrition and lifestyle medicine? Nutritank CIC wants to empower you to have the communication skills and knowledge of lifestyle medicine to improve your patients' health through free CME accredited webinars hosted every Monday evening. Learn from leading experts in the field and gain access to cutting edge research and best practice. Here's what you gain through our webinars: enhanced knowledge of nutrition and lifestyle medicine and applying it in clinical practice, continued medical education credits to maintain your license, and free access to a library of previously recorded high-quality educational webinars. Take action now. Register for upcoming webinars or become a member at nutritank.com. The links will be provided in the show notes. Invest in your clinical practice and patients' well-being and fuel their health with Nutritank CIC.
And so, let's zoom in a little bit on that first meeting. I wonder whether you can. What was the distilled mission? You mentioned it was a nutrition interest group. What was it? What was that all about?
I think for me, I wanted to feel out who else was actually interested in this type of medicine and this approach, because I felt a little bit on my own, and I'm all about connection, always have been. And I just really wanted to meet like-minded people and bring them together. So that was the main purpose, was to just actually see if there was an appetite, if you pardon the pun, for a nutrition in medicine society or group. And then I think from talking to Iain was when, because obviously he's an old man and I was a spring chicken, he he had life experience and said, actually, you can do more than a university society. We can do more than this. He had that foresight to know that it could definitely go beyond just affecting local change. And then we got together and brainstormed and trialed out so many different names and stuck with Nutritank, and everything kind of happened from then. The seed was sown.
So Ali, all about connection, and I think obviously that's what drew me to her. And then I did mention just in my introduction how I was involved in a lot of activities with my first degree. I just want to unpack that a bit more. It was running societies, so doing all the social media effectively, and also organizing large 500 medical students or 500 students going out to the Alps, or starting societies from scratch. And then at one point during the 3 years, I did a startup entrepreneurial program as well, which was 3 months long or maybe 6 months long. So I had all of that sort of knowledge and experience already. It had been taught to me, and I'd practically gone through it. So coming into Bristol, really interested in medical innovation, and I think myself and Ali even went to a couple of medical innovation conferences in the first year when we were speaking and before Nutritank was created. So all of that prior knowledge and experience we sort of utilized, and basically the combination of that with Ali's values of connection, and the thought that we needed to create some kind of organization centered around nutrition, self-care, and that's where Nutritank comes from. So nutritional think tank, Nutritank, and that's the essence of that. So if you can think about all of those if the chemistry and all of the building blocks, if you put it all together, that's where it all started and how it all came about. Yeah.
I think we're already kind of beginning to see a picture of how you guys just complement each other so well. I think hearing about Ali's desire for connection, wanting to bring people together under that umbrella, and then Iain, all of your experience as well, but that shared passion, I think, yeah, it's an amazing combination. And I think it's also worth, so you mentioned, Ali, right at the start, that Bristol is this kind of hotbed for integrative medicine and healthcare. Yet when you both arrived at university, at Bristol University, you both kind of felt bitterly disappointed. So it's almost like there's layers. And why do you think that wasn't able to kind of filter its way down to the undergraduate curriculum?
It all comes down to the autonomy you have as a first year student. It really, the first 6 months is lecture based, but beautifully with Bristol's curriculum. And this is where the inspiration was there from first year onwards. Professor Trevor Thompson now, who is Dr. Trevor Thompson to us, was our head of primary care, is our head of primary care. And he ran a integrated module called whole person care that fed through all throughout first year. And those were my favourite lectures. All the other biomedical lectures I found quite dull, the biochem, the physiology, whatever, knew I had to learn it. But the thing that served me the most were these whole person society and health lectures that Trev would run. And actually in those lectures was where you got autonomy and agency to go off and do other projects. So my whole person care project that I did in the first year was me going to my local cafe. That was this plant-based cafe on my high street, run by these two French sisters whose mom had diabetes, and they realised that they needed to do something to support her. So they came up with this whole concept of this cafe, all because of their mom's diagnosis. And I remember it was just my local cafe, but I was so interested in their story, and storytelling is so important to me. I remember thinking, wow, this is all about health, and this is a really keeping it real kind of story. And I interviewed them for this project, and it was all about family and connection and food and chronic disease, and it was all within the context of whole person care and society and health, and talking about an obesogenic environment because the mum had got very used to eating ultra processed food and fast food and all of that. And that module that ran throughout the entire year allowed me to explore that. And what's more is we had really inspirational people that Trevor and the rest of his faculty team had brought in each week that I distinctively remember. We had someone come talk to us about addiction. We had someone who was a bit older talking about how they live well in old age, and someone came and talked about Tai Chi. So already I actually was really inspired. And whilst the lectures, was just something you had to learn, I'm not saying you don't, I got my main kind of nourishment for my mind and inspiration from this whole person care module that Trevor ran. And so it was there in Bristol. And I really don't think that was available, having spoken to so many medical students throughout the country through the Nutritank network we've created. I don't think that was there that early on for so many students. And then what was great about Bristol is from second year onwards, every time you got agency, which for me is the most important thing. So you are an individual, not just learning a course that everyone could learn. Every time there was a research project opportunity, I did it around nutrition and mental health. Every time there was a special choice module, I chose something in the integrative medicine space that was available already because Bristol was Bristol. So I did an entire 4-month specialty choice module with Dr. Duncan Still. Shout out to what a legend of a GP he is, and Dr. Elizabeth Thompson, who also co-taught on that. And it was called Optimum Aging in Later Life. That was the title of the integrative module. And we had like sex therapists come in and talk about older age sex and reducing the taboo there. We had yoga teachers come in. We had so many people come in. And obviously, because I was an absolute foodie, I did my project for that module on a cooking class for older people as a way to reduce loneliness in the community, because we know that social isolation kills more than cigarettes, which is crazy. So the long and short of it is Bristol had so many opportunities, but only if you were interested. And that is what I stand by saying, is what you get in, you get out, and you had to look for them. But they were there, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great answer. I'm gonna go fast forward to when we had created Nutritank in the first year, so it was third year for us. We Trevor Thompson, Professor Trevor Thompson, as Ali's named, was running this whole day event centered around preventative medicine, how to discuss with patients the importance of nutrition and exercise, physical activity, all of the elements of lifestyle medicine, the 6 pillars, and it was called Prevent. And this was actually a really important day. There was so many really well-known doctors there, and obviously Bristol community, who, as Ali has already named, they were all there as well. So a lot of very inspiring people all in one place. And we had started Nutritank, so we wanted to show Nutritank there as well. So we presented Nutritank to the audience of all of our peers. And also Dr. Rupi Aujla was there as well, I believe, which was I think even in that meeting, we were discussing what the next steps were how can Nutritank help get Dr. Rupi Aujla's new initiative into Bristol, which was Culinary Medicine UK. And I think that conversation happened on that day, which was interesting because the next summer, we had Culinary Medicine UK come to Bristol and do their first pilot for medical students, which myself and Ali were on. And that's when Jamie Oliver came to, do his filming with us. And we spoke to him about the importance of needing more nutrition education for medical students within the UK. And we spoke to him and he was shocked about the fact that there was very little, 5 to 6 hours, we said, 5 to 6 hours in 6 years. And we've done the research. There's about 5,000 contact hours in a medical degree in the UK, 5,000, and there's only 5 hours roughly. It's a range, but it's normally around 5 to 6 hours, and that's it. So that was a really important year.
And is that on nutrition alone? Sorry, those 5 to 6
Yes.
hours.
Yes.
But it's not really the nutrition that is beneficial to the patient. It's the nutrition. It's the anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry of the digestive system. Learning about the Krebs cycle in biochem, and really just digging deep into the digestive tract, rather than the theoretical and clinical application of nutrition as a means to prevent and manage chronic disease. So it wasn't even the nutrition that was practical, which I believe we need on the front line to help our patients with the rise of lifestyle related disease. So it's labeled nutrition, but it's not, it doesn't quite hit the spot.
Got you. It's not. So there's almost 0 hours of practical nutrition training with the medical curriculum.
Yeah, how to empower patients, how to discuss with patients, behavior change or what's important to them, empowering them to make changes. And there was very little of that, and then that has now been brought into Bristol. But we can talk about that in a later part of in this conversation if you want.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far and learning a lot. For those of you who are new listeners, welcome. If you're finding this information valuable, I would love for you to consider joining our regular listener family. Just hit that follow button wherever you're listening and you'll never miss a new episode. By the way, One of our main goals is to educate as many healthcare professionals as possible about the power of nutrition and lifestyle medicine. So if you know someone who might benefit from this information, whether it's a colleague, friend, or family member working in the field, please consider sharing this episode with them. Now let's get back to the show and dive deeper.
Well, and I mean, it's amazing. I think it's almost like you kind of went through the wardrobe in Narnia. So you're kind of part of this like med school kind of tier where that pack mentality is encouraged. Yet there are these kind of beacons of inspiration. And once you went through to that Trevor Thompson thing, this world began to open up. And then you had all of these connections, and suddenly you're chatting with people like right at the top of the game, really pushing the boundaries, like people like Ruby Ordula, Michael Dixon, and all as a result of kind of showing that initial interest. And I think it is important to highlight, one, that Bristol could have been an amazing place for that, and also that students might not have the capacity to do that, and to kind of, I mean, you guys had absolute like bonfires in your belly, and there was this motivation already there. So I think maybe later we can kind of explore that. But what we have touched on is bringing culinary medicine in, and we've kind of spoken a little bit about the vision of what we want. I wonder, kind of looking forward now, what do you think a perfect medical training looks like? What are the pillars of that?
Boom. Very, very nice. So I'm going to talk about it more holistically, beyond nutrition, because there are other pillars that are really important to me. And to me, what I'm really enjoying seeing medical curriculum moving towards, and what I hope it continues to do, is emphasis on experts by experience. So I think learning from people, and really this comes down to how much I value connection, learning from people is so powerful compared to learning everything out of a textbook or through digital interfaces. Actually having expert patients coming in and talking to you about how they live well with their chronic condition, and what are the challenges, what kind of reasonable adjustments have their workplace have to put in, I think is the greatest education to being a doctor, and making sure that you don't have biases when you're speaking to someone in the A&E department or in your clinic, and you are aware of their illness experience and not just about the disease pathology and the treatment intervention. So I think for me, because I did an intercalated degree in medical humanities and creative arts, that's something I'm hugely passionate about. So really getting that illness experience, the arts in there, which is something Bristol was actually amazing for as well. Trevor, the man that wears many hats, ran a brilliant website called Out of Our Heads, which was all about getting medical students to submit pieces of art about patient experiences or about themselves. So I actually had a piece of art exhibit at one of their events, which was wonderful. And so, yeah, for me, it's having that human element of medicine and really, really retaining that as we move towards this AI savvy med tech world, which I'm hugely inspired by, but don't lose the human side of medicine. It is the best part of medicine. I think the perfect curricula also involves an interdisciplinary team to mirror what we see on the shop floor, teaching medical students. So being taught by dietitians is the greatest thing on earth. And I think it's such a shame that not all medical students get that opportunity. At Bristol, we did, through culinary medicine, having brilliant dietitians like Jackie Wilson and Laura Till come in and teach us the art of motivational interviewing. I'm very impressed that Dr. Artie Manny, who is a GP and head of primary care at Imperial College, has got health coaching into the curriculum. So same-ish skills, motivational interviewing. So that, I think, has a lot of legs for the ideal curricula of the future. And also, I think being able to do things in the community, so bringing a huge element around social prescription into medical curricula, and actually going along to what's in your local community, being with patients, talking to them and seeing what initiatives are out there. And so for me, also back to that social element, looking at the social determinants of health, because so much of the time that isn't taught in curricula, and actually in the real world there is such a huge problem with inequity and inequality in medicine based on your postcode. It literally, your postcode is a risk factor for ill health, and I think that needs to be hugely emphasized at medical school, because even though it's moving in a different direction, a lot of privileged people, I'm a privileged person, are still people going to study medicine. And so it's important to be exposed to everything from every aspect in the community and learn about the social determinants of health and also sustainability. I think that is so key to have in the future curricula. We know that the NHS is trying to move towards a green NHS. They're working hard on food waste in hospitals. They're working hard on reducing the amount of material and things that gets wasted on the wards. But I know that's pretty difficult with infection control and all of that. But sustainability needs to be at the core of the future of medicine as well, and looking at its interaction with the environment, because we know that we produce a lot of the mess in the medical field with equipment being single use and all of that. So that's kind of what I'm dreaming of, what I'm hoping to see. And there just being a huge element around food for means of connection and means of learning about illnesses and how to prevent and manage them. Not just for patient knowledge, but actually I want a huge evidence in medical school curricula around training the clinician of the future to be able to look after themselves before getting to crisis point. So proactive and preventative approaches that are embedded within the curricula that you want to impart on your patient, but you're also using them to help yourself, because that would have really helped me, and having a much greater mental health and trauma-informed care focus. So a lot there, but that is holistic healthcare in short. Yeah.
Fantastic. Iain, anything to add on what you think would be a perfect medical training?
Yeah, I just want to touch on like two things just to add. And I completely agree. AI and technology seems to be coming in quite fast now and will be implemented and integrated into training, I'm sure, within modern day healthcare. But yeah, I don't think we should be losing the human element of being a doctor at all. And actually, AI may be, taking away a lot of jobs, possibly some medical professional jobs which are at risk. But the whole element of the human touch and approach of being a clinician is so important, and probably the most important thing for a lot of patients. And that interaction is, as we were taught at Bristol, can be therapeutic. And as Ali said, getting that really early contact time with patients, with expert patients, was really useful for me. And some of those interactions have stayed with me ever since. Getting early contact time in your medical student career on wards, with patients. I think I haven't recalled all of the science that we're taught in first year. It is really important to know the basics, but the Krebs cycle, is it that important? Anyway, then it is important for ICU. I know it's important for ICU exams. I know it is. It should be taught, but it is. There are some elements like that. You're just thinking, why don't you just teach, diet and how important diet and lifestyle is? You can just add that in. If you're going to teach about the Krebs cycle, you might as well teach about that as well. So there are some outdated things still going on within medical school systems. The other thing is that we need to be thinking about examination as well, because examination drives learning. And Nutritank is working with organizations which are working on this at the moment. But at medical school, we do need to be examining medical students on how to take a dietary history, how to take a lifestyle history, how to start to engage a patient with type 2 diabetes on their nutrition, on what they do to look after their health generally. This needs to be taught and examined so that when a medical student leaves as a doctor, they are able to have that conversation rather than only being able to prescribe the medication to treat it, such as metformin. That is really key. And luckily, at Bristol, they are starting to do this, which, again, we can talk about a bit more in conversation later on about the changes that have been taking place. But I think examination is so important.
I wanted to add one last thing, which I know Ian is going to be in absolute agreement with me on this. I think the future of medicine and the training of it needs to involve clinical entrepreneurship. And I think it is a great shame that in the States, because it's a privatized system, and I'm not saying I want that at all, but American medical students and doctors are far more inclined when it comes to business understanding and innovation understanding, because that's how they will eventually practice, by selling themselves, so patients come to them, which is obviously not what we do here. And I truly believe that clinical entrepreneurship is so vital to be taught into mainstream curricula, to give students like myself and Iain way back when the actual hope that they can do something from the bottom up to make a change. If they're on clinical attachments in the ward, they have far more time than the average doctor who's rushing around. They observe things, they see things, they'll see issues in efficiency or issues in patient care, and they should be given the platform to be able to flag that and then come up with their own innovation and pitch it and work on it. So I truly believe that clinical innovation, entrepreneurship, and business management should be completely mainstream and compulsory within, the Doctors of Tomorrow's curricula.
Well, and I think that's amazing. Just to touch on one thing that you said there, Ali, you described entrepreneurship as a means to kind of give people entrepreneurship teaching and medical training, a means to give students hope that they can change things. I think many people associate entrepreneurship, business management with kind of Suits and The Apprentice theme tune, and it's like it's all about hustle. And I think that that contradicts a little bit with what we're trying to create in the medical system. But I think you phrased it so excellently there as a means to kind of individual agency, hope, and change. And I think we've spoken a little bit about the changes you guys hope to bring in, some changes that already have come in. What do you think are the prerequisites? So let's say entrepreneurship or a change in examination. Is it that the evidence base isn't there, or how do we get that ball rolling with these medical schools? I'm sure you guys know.
Well, it's a good question. How do we get the ball rolling in making change within curriculum within UK medical schools? So, as Ali has already mentioned, each medical school is autonomous on setting their own curriculum. So they set it matching what the GMC states that all graduate medical students should know and be able to do as they leave medical school. So they basically give the overarching guidelines, but then the curriculum themselves are set by the medical schools. So that means that there's 33 medical schools in the UK now. That means that there's 33 different autonomous institutions which set their own curriculum, and basically curriculums get set once every 5 years, maybe a little bit less than that. So they are a slow turning changes that can happen. However, there are micro changes that do occur, but overall it's a 5-year turnaround. What we have been working on over the last, let's say, 5 years now, since 2018, is we worked alongside the AFN and the AFN's interprofessional working group, which the GMC asked the AFN if they could take over the review of nutrition curriculum within medical schools in the UK. They asked them that in 2018. Nutritank was asked to be involved in that interprofessional working group, and we were the medical student, initially the medical student voice within that working group. And then as we graduated, we were the undergraduate, junior doctor voice as well. When we came to that first initial meeting back in, spring or summer of 2018, Ali and I presented a presentation of our facts and figures and research that we had found through our work with 18 to 20 medical school societies. And we delivered a presentation to show that the number one reason doctors were not providing diet and lifestyle advice was because of lack of confidence, not lack of time during consultations. The reason why we were saying we're getting as little as 5 to 6 hours of nutrition training or self-care training in 6 years. These were like the initial figures we were getting. The results actually came out in a paper, Time for Nutrition. If you go and look that up on PubMed, Ali and I are both authors in that. That's the research actually published about the need. So we were showing to this working group of lots of heads of BDA and the Royal Colleges of Medicine and lots of other Royal Colleges, and we were showing to them the need and the issues going around there. So then for 3 years, there was a review of what was happening in medical schools, and then a new curriculum was created. So I think it was 2021, the latest nutrition curriculum had been published, and which was amazing. That's a fantastic achievement by the working group and by the AFN. And from going forwards, what needs to happen is that Nutritank medical students and junior doctors need to be telling their medical schools, we need this change, or we want this change. And actually, the Nutritank community of medical students did send lots of emails to their faculty, almost 20 medical school faculty, asking them to make changes to their curriculum. And as of a recent meeting we had as a group with the working group, there has been some really positive changes happening at those autonomous institutions. So progress is being made, but what needs to happen is a continuous communication to these faculty to say, this is important, we need change. And also there's a bottom up coming from medical students and junior doctors, but then also a top down approach as well, whereby we need to be showing the evidence for how important the evidence of how important this is for patients, and showing like the cost savings and the numbers needed to treat. These are really, really important figures. So it needs to have continuous communication, and showing the evidence needs to continue, and we need to keep on showing the positives of how important this type of education is.
Yeah, so I think it's worth exploring that. What does community mean for Nutritank? We've kind of explored it through the lens of you and Ali, and I've got to give you credit for all the amazing effort that you guys have put in. But you haven't been alone on this journey with your kind of peers, have you? Let's hear a little bit about the Nutritank community and how that's grown.
Yeah, gotta say that, an army can do anything, and we have created a Nutritank army, and there's so much impact when, bring people together and power in numbers. So definitely hasn't been just Iain and I, but we've started off with that vision. So Bristol was obviously the first Nutritank community, and then we wanted it to be a national movement. So we got onto social media, as millennials do, put the word out there that we want other medical schools to create their own Nutritank branch. Word spread, we helped give them resources and help with the admin around setting them up. And today we now have nearly every medical school with a Nutritank community branch. And so that allows medical students to not only learn about nutrition and lifestyle medicine for their future patients, but also for themselves, to prevent burnout and to encourage self-care activation. So that was the undergraduate community that came first, because obviously we were undergraduates and we were students. Fast forward now, we have a Nutritank professionals community, which is something we're massively building upon now. We've got a LinkedIn group with over 4,000 like-minded professionals in there, healthcare professionals, and that's a place for everyone to meet and greet and learn where each other work and share resources. And we also have a free membership to our website, which is where everyone across the globe can access all our previous educational webinars, resources, and find out who's in their community near them, who shares the same vision. So that is something we've been so passionate about building, and why we've put a lot of effort into our social media as well, and amassed the following that we have, so that we can make sure that we're joining up the dots and we're showing people you're not alone. If this is the type of healthcare that you envisage practicing and want to practice, there's so many people you can meet, be inspired by. And we've put on countless annual conferences in association with Royal Society of Medicine, and that's been a wonderful place to bring our community together and allow people, including ourselves, to meet new people and build on those new connections. And yeah, that's kind of what we've done in terms of building the community. It's been really powerful for us.
No, I would say that over the last, what is it now, 6 years, 5 years, we've had an amazing voluntary community of medical students and doctors and nutritionists, dietitians who've joined us at various stages, who've helped us to grow Nutritank to where it is now. So, we've had doctors providing their time to write articles and to show their passion. We've had medical students. Obviously, it's amazing to see medical students on another part of the UK and sometimes in other countries, representing Nutritank and actually getting a community together in their medical schools, or the junior doctors getting a community together in their messes to practice what we preach in a way. So we've had medical students organising runs on beaches and early morning swims in the North Sea, healthy porridge afterwards. We've had amazing gut health lectures with incredible meals afterwards. It's amazing to see, and the community is so important around what Nutritank is, because that's part of the health benefits that we're trying to show.
Yeah, and just a massive shout out to our core team who help us with everything day to day with Nutritank. So our team dietitian, Rachel White, our head of education, Alice Benskin, and our social media team and branch team, Lottie and Simone. It really is a group effort.
Amazing. Yeah, there's a big army, like you guys have said. And I'm wondering, so Nutritank is a think tank within itself, so you can't necessarily pin it down to one output, one mission. But can you distill where Nutritank is at the moment? What is the mission going forward right now?
So we have done, we've shown our impact through our medical education campaigns. We've seen that we've got a need for nutrition clause into the NHS long-term plan in 2019. We got that in via working with Jamie Oliver and his campaign group. The new AFN curriculum and medical
Five papers,
as well as thousands of medical students and doctors taught nutrition and lifestyle medicine for free. So there's been a lot of impact through that. What we are now doing is, through our new website, as Ali has said, we're really distilling that down now to the importance of providing free webinars on this field and on this subject to healthcare professionals, and providing continuous medical education points for these webinars. And we want to basically educate as many doctors and healthcare professionals within the UK as possible. Go check out our website and sign up, and you get access to all of the webinars that we've hosted throughout the years, and future webinars as well. Our mission is really clear. We want to provide the highest quality education to medical professionals, healthcare professionals within the UK on this field, and provide it at the point of access.
Fantastic. Truly inspirational, guys. Yeah, and I think why don't we come to our kind of closing questions now, which are going to be consistent throughout the podcast episodes. So self-care has come up. I think both of you kind of learned to do that in your own ways. But have you each got one tip which you could provide to our audience, how to look after yourself? Yeah, whether they're a student, a young professional, or medical entrepreneur, as you guys say.
So for me, the one tip is going to be tricky because real self-care to me is the internal and the external. So the internal is really important to me, and managing your mess in your brain and learning how to have boundaries, learning what is right for you in that moment, when to say no, and all those kind of mental practices that I literally enact day to day. So I think internal self-care is really important, and managing your thoughts, also trying to remove conditional thinking and pinning your self-worth on external achievements, etc. So that's a huge part of self-care to me. And then from the external point of view, what I put into my body, for me, it's all about 80-20 and making sure that I'm not too hard on myself if I have a day where ultra processed food or things that don't necessarily serve my body and mind slip into play, and knowing that as long as I'm sticking to an overall dietary pattern that is healthful, then that is good enough. And this 80-20 rule has really served me to just be balanced and not have to really, and to have a sustainable lifestyle, to not really have to worry about restriction or anything like that. So that's my biggest tip for self-care, is really these principles that I live by. And sleep and nutrition and connection are my top three.
And just for those who don't know, 80-20, what exactly is that split that you're talking about there?
So 80% of the time you are sticking to, for me, a Mediterranean dietary pattern, or to moving my body, or to getting early nights, etc. But 20% of the time, things slip. It's not perfect, and we're not robots. So it's really being kind and to yourself, and having that self-compassion to say, oh, you cannot be 100% all the time in having the perfect self-care and lifestyle routine. Just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I think going back to my my roots of the influences in Portugal, and just trying to, when it comes to nutrition, trying to adopt a Mediterranean-ish way of eating and dietary pattern. Obviously, in the UK, that's quite hard, but trying to get really amazing healthy fats in, reducing animal products as and when you can, and really focusing on whole foods and fiber, and a variety of beautiful fruit and vegetables. And then when it comes to movement in the UK, it's quite hard, I guess, with our busy lifestyles and jobs. But I think finding some form of movement which you enjoy is so important. And for me, I try to just do the things I enjoy when it comes to movement. And if I don't enjoy some kind of physical activity, I don't think we should call it exercise or physical activity. We should just try and find movement that we enjoy, and that could be anything, dancing, yoga, tai chi, a walk, literally anything that you enjoy. Just if you enjoy it, then you're going to do it again and again and again, and that repetition and that consistency builds up, and that's what has an impact on you. So go for a really low hanging fruit, something from your childhood that you've forgotten about. Bring it back to your modern day adult life and enjoy it again.
Yeah, I think, Iain, you've really well described the kind of joy that needs to be harnessed for any kind of effective thing. And Ali, you mentioned kind of forgiveness, and it's a practice, isn't it? It's not this perfect formula that you're just going to nail and then it's going to be there for the rest of the time. And so with that kind of mindset, I think those could be strengths in themselves. But what do you think our community and our listeners can try and cultivate within themselves to kind of maximize our chances of creating a healthier future?
I'm going to say to our listeners, start small and maybe just get someone with you on that change journey to accompany you. Because if you just start small behavior changes around how you meet your friends, instead of going to the pub for a beer, why don't you say, let's go for a walk in nature and, bring a bottle of water, hydrate yourself and look out onto nature and have the power of connection. So I think it's all about just minor changes, and instead of restriction, really try and employ addition. So don't think about what you can't eat and what you can't do. Think about what you can do and how to just make it work with where you're at in your lifestyle. Because we're not saying to everyone that they need to be pro athletes or be doing Ironman. We're saying just to make small changes to where you're at within your current situation.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's kind of that joyful accountability where it's not like beating each other up, but kind of encouraging each other, lifting each other up. Iain, what about you?
I actually wrote it in. We wrote it in in an article for the NHS at 75, the celebration. But it's hope. The hope that we can actually change something. The hope that we can provide patients with information and empower them to make changes. And I think that's really important because, obviously it's quite UK at the moment, the NHS, the health system is quite bleak at the moment. We need to be thinking, actually, we can change something. We can actually make a difference, and having that hope that things can get better. And it's really important. So cultivate that strength and provide it to the people you work with, and share it with your patients and clients and family.
I think that's fantastic. And I mean, so just wrapping up, I mean, is there a resource you can think of that you can recommend so that people can maybe feel a bit more hope, feel a bit more inspired, learn a bit more, within this kind of bigger field that we're talking about?
Well, definitely the Nutritank website, which has all of the free webinars if you sign up.
Fantastic. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface in a lot of what I would have loved to get into today. You guys are just kind of at the start of your doctor career. There's so much to unpick there. So where can our audience find you if they want to learn a little bit more about your journey and kind of keep up with what you're up to at the moment?
So my website, www.dralijaffee.com, and my social media handles, the one I use the most is LinkedIn, Dr. Ali Jaffee, and Instagram.
Brilliant. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Iain Broadley, and you can find me on Instagram, again, Dr. Iain Broadley.
Excellent. Well, I just want to thank you guys so much for coming by today. Really rich insight into how far Nutritank's come and where it's going. So yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you
so much, Luke.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, share it with your friends and family and drop us a review on your preferred podcast platform. Don't forget to follow the show on your favorite streaming platform and connect with us online to stay up to date with all the latest news and episodes. If you feel engaged with a particular aspect of today's show, then please comment on our social media posts for this episode. They'll be linked in the show notes. See you in the next episode.